Now, I was walking along in my local grocery store when something strange caught my eye. Walking past the deli counter, I noticed a cheese that read Cooper Sharp. Now, if you don't know anything about Cooper Sharp, finding it in New York is like finding an Italian in Fargo.
What the f are you doing out here by yourself?
And it got me thinking about Philly cheesesteaks. Many people pontificate about what makes a perfect Philly cheesesteak. You need an Omarosa roll. Whiz versus provolone. Do you cook the steak sliced or do you chop it up? All these things, very important. But I've heard whispers from people in Philly, friends, all who claim that the real secret to a Philly cheesesteak is a cheese called Cooper Sharp. Now that I have a reliable source for it, we're gonna attempt to craft the most ideal, perfect, true to form Philly cheesesteak at home, no matter where you are. And we're gonna start with the caramelized onions. Some people cook it with the meat. What we're gonna do is caramelize them a little bit slowly, give them some time in a separate pan, and then incorporate it into the meat later. I've got an onion, gonna cut the top off, and then cut the onion in half. We're just going to kind of cut them, not into a super big dice, but the smaller it is, the more it kind of incorporates into the meat, which I think is a nice thing. So what we're gonna do is sort of follow the shape of the onion right along these little lines that run along the top of it. And we're just gonna make little slices. Not too thin, not too thick. Then we're gonna just cut kind of square cuts. Now, onions are a component, but they're onions. One of the things that's a core component is the fat we're going to use. And we're gonna be using some beef tallow. Now, I'm tight on time. I usually make this myself. You can see it in all my holiday recipes. If you don't have time, you can always buy it. And the reasoning behind beef fat is we're imagining a Philly cheesesteak flat top that's been cooking ribeyes all day. All of that fat is what's seasoning the griddle. And we're just replicating that by kind of supplementing it with our own. Now I'm gonna cook the onions in a little saute pan, and I'm gonna get it hot and add in our beef tallow. Once that's hot, we can toss in the onions, and we're going to caramelize these. So we're gonna hit them with a little salt, get them mixed up, and then cook them on like a medium heat to start. We wanna try and get them translucent, start to developing a little bit of caramelization, and we can add a little bit of water to start to speed that process up. That water will evaporate, and all that's gonna be left is the fat, and then it'll continue to caramelize. Let them cook, and if they need a little bit more fat, go ahead and add it. And what we're just looking for is like the transformation in color. It's gonna start pale white, it's gonna get spotty and brown, start caramelizing, and we just wanna move it around, cook it slowly as it continues to turn shade after shade of a darker caramelized color. If you cut them unevenly, then the smaller pieces are obviously gonna brown faster than the larger pieces. So just take your time, and after about 30 minutes or so, they should be deeply caramelized and in a good spot. Then I'm just gonna switch sides, transfer the griddle over to this side, and put these onions on like a super low setting, and just allow them to continue to caramelize while we prepare the rest of the ingredients. Next up, we've got to talk about our meat. Usually, we're going with ribeye all the way. It's always frozen and sliced very thin. The texture is important. And some places either cook it whole and sliced like this, not chop it up, and some places chop it up. To me, you gotta chop it up. Get the cheese blended in, make it all homogeneous. But to get the ribeye, if you've got an Asian market near you, a butcher, somebody who can take ribeye and slice it on a deli slicer thin, they call this shabu shabu. It's like, you know, for Korean barbecue. Or I've made plenty of Philly cheesesteak videos. There's a method I have for slicing at home on a mandolin that you can try. And generally for reasonably portioned Philly cheesesteak, you're going with 6 ounces. We're gonna double it. So our meat is ready. And then of course we need to talk about the roll. Now, much like the cheese we're about to talk about, the roll is sort of like a local staple. Omarosa bakery roll, and the local shops love to use it. Now, the roll itself is not, you know, particularly unique. We're looking for a crusty bread, but not too crusty. Can't be too soft, and it can't be too crusty that when you take a bite out of it, everything shoots out of it. And then, of course, we have the real secret to this, Cooper Sharp. Cooper Sharp is an American cheese, but imagine an American cheese that used sharp, flavorful cheese, so that when you eat it, it's actually melts a little gooier. It lacks that sort of like tangy artificial flavor, and it really does transform and elevate this sandwich. Complements the meat better. It is just a higher level of cheese to use for this. And you know, this is all it looks like. Looks like provolone and American cheese. distinctly sharper. The way like a good sharp cheese coats your palate, this cheese does too, and it's melty. I'm sure you can find it on the internet today, or if you got a deli counter, maybe see if they could order it. But with this in hand, you can make a cheesesteak at home just like the best of them. So now we got the meat, we got the cheese, the onions, the fat. Now we need the seasoning. And for mine, we're gonna make a little custom blend. We're gonna start with a little bit of garlic powder, just 1 part garlic powder to 1 part onion powder, and then 2 parts salt. And we're just gonna use that to season our meat. One thing that I usually complain about whenever I have a Philly cheesesteak is that it's just a little bland, a little light on the seasoning. Now I got my griddle preheating. It's trying to get it around 400 degrees. So let's get everything ready and head on over to the stove. Now to cook a dish like this, you're gonna need a really heavy duty pan. Something like a cast iron or a carbon steel pan. Those are like second best option. The ideal choice, however, is the carbon steel griddle from our sponsor today, Maiden. One of my favorite things to cook on. Having something like this in my kitchen makes me feel like I'm a short order cook. It's heat safe up to 1200 degrees, so you can cook with it outdoor on a grill, over an open fire, or on your stovetop. And for a recipe like Philly cheesesteak, you want to get real authentic with it, it's just better to have a griddle. It comes pre-seasoned and naturally non-stick, and like a cast iron or carbon steel, the more you use it, the more you develop that natural non-stick surface. And covering 2 burners, it actually maximizes cooking space, so you don't have to like worry about things overcrowding in a pan. I absolutely love it. It sits on my stove, it looks good, it works great. What more could you ask for? So if you want to pick one up for yourself, head on over to Maiden. The link's going to be down in my description. So here we are, we're ready to go. We've got our cheese, we've got our meat, our onions have cooked on the stove, and we've got our bread. As you may know, I got a different roll here. Somehow the whole cooking of the cheesesteak didn't make it to the editing room. Hey, it happens. And that seeded roll I used wasn't available today, so this style club roll hero, kind of hard on the outside, soft, airy, it's gonna work just fine. Now we're looking for a surface temperature of about 400 degrees. So we're preheating our griddle. In the meantime, we can season our meat. And I think I just wanna cut the ends off the club roll, the culo. So it's like that. It's probably too much meat, but we're gonna make it anyway. And to do this, we're gonna need a couple utensils. Right here, we got a sharp spatula, and then this sort of spackle tool. A gift from Mr. Guga, but this is kind of food grade. It's gonna allow us to sort of shred this meat up. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put the roll on, and we're just gonna toast the bottom, kind of get it nice and toasted, so that creates like a nice firm structure to hold in all this meat. So our griddle's at its temp, we can get this thing cooking. First, I'm gonna add a little bit of that beef tallow, not too much. The beef has it in it. I'm just using a little to get it going. Then just take that spatula and just sort of spread it around the surface area you're gonna be cooking in. Then we can go ahead and slap on the meat. We're gonna let it go on this one side and try and brown it as best we can. Once it starts to brown, we can sort of divide each row up into 2 portions just to make it a little bit easy for us to flip. Go ahead and give them a flip. Start browning them on that other side. Now, once it's been on that other side for a minute or so, we're gonna go ahead with our slicing technique, which starts with using the spackle against the spatula and just sort of flecking off little strips of meat. Put some on the back burner while we slice up the rest of it. Obviously, the more meat you have, the more time you wanna take to just shred this up nicely. It's those little flecks that sort of meld with the cheese and bind them all together. Once everything's nicely chopped up, we can go ahead and add in the onions and start to fold them into the mix. Once our onions are worked in, we can spread that meat pile out and then start piling that Cooper Sharp all over it. I'm gonna start with just covering the surface. Then we're gonna go ahead and, just like we did before, cut that into the mix and fold and cut and fold until that entire mixture is sort of bound by cheese, is creamy, it's sort of a little bit paler, and it sort of acts as one sort of homogeneous mass. I want it a little creamier, so I'm gonna add a little bit more cheese. I'm just gonna go with like a visual and how it sort of binds to each other to know when I'm in the right place. Looks like the cheese is nicely melted. We've got some nice caramelized bits of meat and it's all bound together. Now we can scoop it into the bread. And I've just hollowed out the top of it just to fit more meat in it. Now we can give it a cut in half. I'm gonna serve it in one of these baskets just to give it a little bit of a classic feel. And for those wondering about that mess of a griddle, I'm gonna show you a really cool, easy way to handle it that might make you actually wanna buy one. To clean, I just scraped off any rough bits, got it hot again, and you can either add a little bit of water to the pan, you could also use a little ice. You just let the steam of that ice sort of melt and pick up all the stuck-on bits. And it just sort of deglazes it, right? Once all that stuff is picked up, you can just sort of scoop it out, wipe out the pan, get it back hot again, and then just a little coating of oil, and it's good as new, ready to go next time. And now the moment of truth. Right off the bat, the first thing you get is the aroma. It smells unlike other cheesesteaks. It's that sharpness of the cheese that really elevates this sandwich. And the cheese has homogenized the meat. It's gluing it together. You can sort of pick up a clump, and it should be one sort of mass. That's a fucking cheesesteak. It's not too greasy, full flavored, seasoned, gooey, and now with that cheese, sharpness. An added thing you don't usually get. And it's a different type of hit than like the sharpness of a provolone. Now, if you wanna make this and support me, one of the best ways to do it is to grab that griddle from Made In. Link's gonna be down in the description. The best way to support me is to join my cooking school down in the description. It's on Patreon. Just finished our first month, 2 new lessons, and we just had our first live stream where we all got together, reviewed your homework, and try to fix any issues you might have. It's the most interactive way to be in touch with me, and it gives you direct access to asking me questions anytime you want. Link's gonna be down in the description, and of course the recipe to this is down there as well. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.